Hello, Culture Matters podcast guest. I'm so excited to introduce you to, I just said hello, Culture Matters podcast guest. That's funny. Listeners, I'm excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and wiser people are so full of doubts. Bertrand Russell, good friend of mine, coming back on the show from you actually hear Aaron Scott Young on episode 123. Please listen to that after this episode. You're going to really enjoy a very different conversation, episode 123. Aaron Scott Young's been advising business owners for well, I don't want to age him, but let's say long enough that you should be hiring him after this, or maybe halfway through. But brilliant man, and thank you for coming back, my friend. Well, first of all, I picked that quote because I was re-listening to our last episode, and it just hit me. So I want to ask you what you think of that, as someone that's giving counsel to so many successful business owners and those that have become more successful because they've had mentorship and role modelship. And you know, what do you think? And you've been around so many and collaborated so many people of prominence in the personal development space at varying degrees. You know, what do you think when you hear that, right? The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and wiser people are so full of doubts. What are the first things that come to your mind? How can we relate this to the unshackled owner?
Well, I'll tell you what comes to my mind is if you look around the world, you look at any sort of somebody trying to build a power base. People that are trying to build a power base tend to prey on the least educated, poorest, least traveled people, because it's easy to incite them. It's been done throughout history. If you look at the Taliban, if you look at Hitler, if you look at even no matter what your political persuasion, if you look what happened with the whole Capitol, with the insurrection, they call it, right? You've got people who get so much confirmation bias toward a particular belief system, and they only ever listen to their own little group. They never get curious about the world. And so when you feel like a victim anyway, and then somebody says somebody else is to blame for it, those are the ones who become very convinced that they're doing something righteous. And the people that have more life experience, who have friends who don't look like them or believe like them, who've been to other countries, who've picked up some other languages, or at least can be polite when they go to other places, they realize the world is a pretty big, pretty diverse, pretty cool place, and no one country, one religion, one philosophical bent has a corner on rightness. And so when I hear that, I think, the more you learn, the more you realize how much there is to learn. The less you learn, the more convinced you are that what you believe already is the right thing, because it's all you know. And if you are not curious, which most fanatical, or I hate to use harsh language, but most dumb people are not very curious. And so they don't ask questions. They don't think. So I love that quote. I think it's exactly right. And although it's interesting, I have a flip side to that. One of my things that I say is, it's more important to be certain than it is to be right. Because you can get completely bogged down trying to wait for the right moment, time the real estate market, time the stock market, have the right business partner, the right product, the right website, the right, whatever, right slogan. If you're trying so hard to be quote unquote right, you will not make progress. But if you just make a decision on something and say, we're going over there, this is where we're going, let's go. You can always change course later. if you realize, oh, this isn't getting us where we wanted to go. But I think it's important to just decide something and go. And then, if you need to change course later, what's the old Turkish proverb? No matter how far you go down the wrong road, turn back. And
I never heard that, believe it or not.
Well, the point is, you're not stuck on any one path, right? But if you just wait you just said we could freeform it, so I'm going to do it. Did we talk about the road not taken last time? The poem?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
All right. So I'm going to go off on can I go on a tangent?
Please, that would be wonderful. Okay.
So Robert Frost has written this poem that people almost look at as a religious device, and almost everybody only knows the very end of the poem. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference, right? That's what people think about. Is that correct? Was that what your experience is?
Yeah. I think that's.
Do you know all four stanzas of the poem?
I don't know anything about it.
Can I quote the poem?
Please, that would be great.
All right. So remember, we're on this topic about right versus certain, right? So the audience keeps up, because I get on tangents and sometimes I forget where I was going. So the poem goes like this. It says, 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, and then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. But as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning evenly lay in leaves no step had trodden black. I kept the first for another day, but knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted I would ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now, Hallmark has basically co-opted this poem to say we as Americans, or we as entrepreneurs, are such badasses because we take the road not less traveled. We go the more difficult way, and we become something magical, right? But that's not what Robert Frost was doing at all. Robert Frost wrote, first of all, remember the poem. The first 3 stanzas all say, I'm standing at a fork in the road, and I'm trying to decide which way to go, and both of them are untouched. And I don't know which one I should take, right? Both that morning evenly lay in leaves no step had trodden black. So you have 2 perfect paths you can follow. Nobody's gone down that path. It's yours to choose. We get this every day in our life. Okay. So Robert Frost is looking, and he says, I made a choice, and I probably would ever go back. I would never have the chance to go back to that moment again. And way leads on to way. We know that every time we make, especially an important choice in our life, who we're going to be friends with, who we're going to marry, who we're going to do business with, what our religious bent is, where we're going to travel, where we're going to live, all these critical moments, if we're going to be honest or dishonest in a moment, all of these little choices that we make in these forks in our life will get us somewhere. And in the 4th stanza, he says, I shall be telling this with a sigh, ages and ages hence. So he doesn't say, I'm in a big mansion with money. He doesn't say, I'm surrounded by people that love me. I'm famous and powerful. I'm in prison. I'm alone. I'm sickly. He doesn't say anything. He just says, I'll be telling this with a sigh. 2 roads diverged. I took this one, and that's how I got where I am. Right? That's what the poem says. Now, here's the tricky part. Here's the part that's so ironic. Robert Frost, when he was living in England for a while, he had this other poet that he would go on walks in the woods with. And that guy was like overthinking everything, and would get to a fork and would freak out about, well, if we go this way, will there be water? Will there be a village? Will this come around? But if we go this way, we could go into this, what? And it was like a big joke. Robert Frost wrote this poem and sent it to this other guy as a tease, as a joke about how the guy could never make a choice.
Wow.
That's what the poem's about. It was a joke. It was a going, ha, 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 you could never make a decision. Now, the guy who received it thought it was this amazing prophecy. It's like, oh my gosh, world's smartest philosophical poem ever, until he found out that Robert was teasing him. And then he got real pissed. But anyway, the point is,
profound though, by the way.
It's super profound, but it's not as profound as we've turned it into. It is profound, but it's just every day. Every day we get to make choices, and the combination of those choices will get us somewhere. And so if we don't make a choice, like the guy he was teasing, you'll just stand there and stare till it starts to rain or something. But if you make a choice, you'll eventually get somewhere. And if you get to a dead end, you can go back and go the other way, right? The point is, we just need to make choices in our lives. We raise horses and we train horses. And one of the things that you learn pretty early with horses is they're a lot bigger and stronger than you. And so if you're going to get a horse, if you're going to try to tug a war with a horse or try to push a horse across the creek or anything like that, you're going to lose. The horse is going to win. The horse is just bigger and stronger. So what you want to do with the horse, when the horse gets nervous, when the horse isn't sure what to do, and it wants to brace itself and stop, a good rider will, here's the key, here's the moment, is keep their feet moving. Keep the horse's feet moving. Even if they're doing something you don't want them to do, just keep their feet moving. Don't let them stop, because if they stop and they're scared, they may not start again. Well, this is what humans do. We stop out of fear. We stop out of doubt. We stop out of, what if I make a mistake? Instead of understanding that we learn from our mistakes. And one thing I've learned is that even if I'm not really sure which is the right one, if I keep my feet moving and I just make a decision and go, I meet interesting people. I learn things about my business or about whatever the thing is I'm doing in that moment. I become a greater version of myself simply by the experience of going down some path that I'm not really sure where it's going to lead me, but I'm going to go check it out.
Wow.
We grow as humans by doing that. So it's more important to be certain, let's go to the left, than it is to be right. The left is definitely the right choice. We don't know, but our life will be bigger and more valuable if we just keep moving our feet and just be certain, even if you're not sure if you're right.
You said, till it starts to rain. And I immediately, let's take that branch for a second, that fork.
All
I
right.
immediately thought of the business owner or the person in the position of control of the business that you're interacting with. If they don't make the decision, the business is going to make the decision for them, or the right, like
Sure.
Until it starts to rain. Can you unpack that a bit? The scenarios
Or the market.
or the market. Yeah, look at our time now. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that? That till it starts to rain, like we don't have a choice. We're moving whether we choose to or not. What are your thoughts?
So many people that okay, let's go back to something we're all familiar with, software, right? You get some software on your phone, on an app, on a computer, and sometimes it's a little bit buggy, and they do these updates all the time because the manufacturer understands, the designer of the software gets, we need to just get it out. Once it's good enough, we can fix it, but even the market will help us figure out what to fix, right? It'll tell us what's working and what's not. If they waited until everything was perfect, they would never, ever, ever deliver the product. They would never do it. And so what happens is people that just out of fear, and fear could be fear of loss, it could be loss of money, loss of respect, loss of social capital, whatever. If they delay acting on something that's good enough already, somebody else will come along and will do it. You know, somebody's, if there's a real need for something, somebody will fill it. We talk about the Wright brothers being the first ones to fly, but that's highly disputed in other countries. There were a number of individuals working on manned flight at the same time. And the story is that Orville and Wilbur were the first ones there at Kitty Hawk, get the plane off the ground and go. But even if they were first, there were other people around the world on their heels. Somebody was going to do it. If they didn't leave the bicycle shop, go down to the beach and go to work on their motorized kite, somebody else would have been the famous ones, not them. You gotta move your feet. You got to get out there, because if you delay, somebody else will come along and do it, or the moment will pass. You know, everybody and their dog right now, and I don't know when the listener will be hearing this, but we're still in a moment, kind of coming to the end of a moment where there was a lot of COVID relief money, including the employee retention credit. So we applied for the employee retention credit when it was early, and we got it. And now every other radio commercial, all these robo dialers are calling me going, it's still time to get $26,000 per employee, right? They're at the very end. They got in late. Now everybody's trying to do it at the last minute. And a lot of people will never fully capitalize on the project because they came into it late when everybody else was doing it. Remember what one of my early mentors told me when I said, what are the keys to great wealth? He said, live within your means, buy low, sell high. So when he told me those two things, I thought he's teasing me. And then the third thing he said was, if you're standing in line, you're probably in the wrong place. If you're with everybody else, doing what everybody else is doing, you're in the wrong place. If you're delaying out of fear, out of embarrassment, whatever, you're not going to be the one that succeeds. If you go out and you're the first mover or the first follower, you have a very high likelihood of great success.
What made you think that there was a joke, or not a joke, but kidding? Would you say kidding with the live in means and buy low, sell high? Like, is it
because we've been hearing that our whole life?
It's so obvious, or it's so.
Yeah, I mean, everything I ever learned from a kid was you need to spend less than you make. And if you're in business, you want to buy low, sell high. You don't want to buy high, sell low, right? These are obvious. But then the third one he dropped on me was, if you're standing in line, you're probably in the wrong place. And that has stuck with me ever since, going, okay, how can we be different? How can we take advantage of an opportunity, and so on? Again, you make a decision regardless of knowing exactly how it's going to come out. You do the best due diligence you can and then go, so you get to be actually in the game instead of late to the game.
What's the game look like now? What are you seeing? Because a big theme has been, for our listeners, how to approach this. You mentioned the market, the macro side, and this will be out in the next few weeks. Like, how do the listeners, I guess, not stand in line right now? Like, what are you feeling? What are you seeing out there? I know you just were a part of a big event I'm sure I can't wait to learn more about that. But yeah, how do we not stand in line now in the spirit of this current market feeling?
Yeah, the insecurity in the market.
Like, where there's got to be a level, because I'm thinking about that poem. When you said until it rains, right? It's like, what's out of our control, those forks are perpetual. And the market, in a sense, is this giant wood. I'm just like trying to,
Well, yeah, I mean, let's not get too buried in the analogy, but you're right. Every day we make choices, and the choices will determine our future outcomes. And so
and
making
our choices are proportional to the macro too.
Sure, absolutely.
Like, what's the
The aggregate of the choices. Well, here's what I'll tell you, and it may seem self-evident, but most people, just like on this ERC, this employee retention credit thing I was just talking about, most people come late. I look at all the people that made money, like let's say investing early in Bitcoin versus the one that people invested late, and then the market tanked and it collapsed, and a lot of people lost money. People that got in early when everybody else thought it was wacko, they made a decision. They tried something. They were not standing in line with everybody else. And a lot of people became very wealthy doing that, even after the price dropped. They saw had exponential growth in their early investment. It's the same with anything. People that might be coming out right now saying, hey, let's fix and flip houses. Let's sell, let's be a mortgage company. It's that moment for this cycle, that moment's past. It's over with, right? Now, but that's still what the uninformed, the newbies, the ones who are in line are going, well, maybe I'll go flip houses, or maybe I'll go, because that's all they know, right? They waited till it was such a proven concept and everybody was talking about it that the real opportunity was over. You know what they say about in the stock market? They say, by the time you get the tip, it's too late. If you're waiting to buy because now somebody told you should go buy it, yes, you've already missed it. So I don't know. It's the whole point is if you try to, it's great to emulate other people's success. It's great to look at somebody and go, oh, that person's doing something well. What can I learn by their success? That's a great thing to consider. But if you try to copy what they're doing, in my experience, you either better do it better or do it cheaper or do it somewhere else where you're not in competition with the one who's already got the market share. Normally what you do is you look at something and go, oh, I see that that's working. How could I take that concept and apply it in a slightly different place so that I'm out in front of the crowd?
Do you think that part of the value that you provide and people like you in the context of the business owner is helping them innovate around those questions, or even maybe create those questions and figure that out so they're not just competing to the bottom, in a sense, catching a falling knife? Like there's that interplay with the external advisor or the counsel, so the idea becomes a good idea. I don't know. Here's what.
So let me
scrape at something here.
Well, yeah. Let
me
me
in the right direction.
let me do my best to answer that point from my perspective. So in the last several days, we're recording this on a Tuesday. So since Friday, I have worked with a guy who's looking to buy a trucking company with a decent sized fleet of trucks. I've worked with a tax planning firm that is growing very fast. I've worked with, and these are all people that have engaged me. So, and by the way, I'm not a consultant. It trips me out that people come engage me in some way. But trucking company, tax planning firm, a company that does entertainment and is bringing, they've already got multiple Tony and Emmy awards, and they're bringing some, I'm not going to say them right now, but they're bringing two major brands to Broadway. They've got the scripts, they've got the score, they've got I mean, it's happening. The money's being raised. Two big names that most of the listeners would know. And then also an event business that has this opportunity to work with several very, very well-known brands, and they've engaged me, and they all come with their own unique questions, right? And yet, one of my very favorite things I learned a long time ago from one of my good friends is SRA, same rules apply.
Hmm.
And it doesn't really matter that much what the business itself is. The ways of differentiating yourself, the ways of scaling, the ways of managing your team, the things that you measure, the things that matter, and the things that matter very little. Once you get a grip on what the project is, once you've done it a bunch of times, like I have, the same rules apply. There's a way of saying first this, then this. It's what I teach in Unshackled in my course. And by the way, I'll share this with you.
Yeah, can we plug that? Because I think people should tap into it too.
Yeah, they can go to aaronscottyoung.com and look under programs, and you'll see the course that I teach on this exact thing. The thing I do for my companies and for hundreds of other companies, of helping them scale to be quite successful without the founder or the owner having to be there all the time, chained to their desk. Right? It's how to scale something beyond you, build a company that's bigger than you. But let me share you something that yours is the first audience to hear this, or at least it's being recorded on the day. I woke up this morning to a text from my co-author, one of my students that went through the course a bunch of times, saying just one word, sent. The book, Unshackled, went today to the publisher. It's a New York publisher.
Awesome.
We're going to be in full distribution, all the Barnes and Nobles and airports, and
I can't wait to read it.
Amazon, all that stuff. That book, which we've worked on for about 2.5 years, is done now. I'm very excited about it. Even the editor, who does all kinds of great business books, I said, is there anything in there, anything sophomoric, anything that you'd change? She goes, I don't know, because I was so caught up in the content. I was looking at all the ways I need to change my business based on editing your book. I'm sitting here going, I need to fix this and this and this. That was a very nice thing to receive. And we've got great testimonials. Former CEO or president of Warner Brothers, the founder of Teladoc, which is $18 billion company, the founder of Uggs, the founder of Priceline, the founder of the E Network. All these people and a bunch of others wrote wonderful testimonials for the book. It's going to be great. These are the same rules that I use in all these things that I do, and they're going to be in the book. When the book won't come out till the fall. It's end of June now as we record, so it'll be later in 2023. The book will come out. Can
you say what chapter 1 is called, or is that a little? Am I being too overzealous? Like chapter 1, like, is there?
All Unshackled is the course that I teach. Here's what happened. This young man who was 29, I think, when I met him, he heard me speak in London at a very large conference. And he came to me and said, I have a computer coding business. I'm young. We haven't been going that long. I'm doing about $1.5 million a year. And I'm stuck. Like I've kind of hit my ceiling. And I said, well, I teach this course, and if you took it, it might provide some value. So he took it over and over and over again, even though he's from Romania. He was living in England. So he was either 8 or 10 hours.
And this wasn't Andrew Tate?
No. No.
I'm sorry. It was just so easy.
So easy. Anyway, the long short of it is this guy told me that he's 30x'd his company by following what he learned. He built a huge system for Intel for their worldwide employee management system. He did the Jaguar Land Rover website that's all client facing to build your own car. He did all that stuff. He's done all kinds of cool things. The point is, he said, we have all these people in Eastern Europe who are highly educated, but don't make very much money. They make, an engineer makes $500 a year or a month. They can't afford your $7,500 class. And he said, we need a book. You need to write this book. And I said, Robert, I don't have any time to write a book. And he goes, how about if I just take all of your training, all of your transcripts, your exact recordings, and I'll add how I implemented your training in my business. So you've got a 30-year-old tech guy in Romania and a 59-year-old business guy in America, and look how it applies. Same rules apply. It applies everywhere. So that's what the book is. It's the training, his application of the training, and how it grew his company, and how. Anyway, so the book's coming out, and I'm super excited that it's coming out. And there's nowhere to send you any right now. We're not doing pre-sales yet.
I think that's what a great story, though. Mentor-mentee relationship, and I think you might be foreshadowing something that I think is going to be happening more as a reaction to the cultural, like this idea of the mentor-mentee, that and the combination of two together. I just think you're onto something with that. I can't wait to read it. What a profound story.
Well, make sure you get a copy of it.
And I hope that we don't get suppressed because I made that stupid joke. God, I'm just like, oh, well, at least you and I get to have this nice conversation. I'll send this to a few of my friends. I was like, you're building, at least there's some hope out there for Romania.
Yeah, you're recording. If you're worried, you can always edit.
Yeah, but, right.
Anyway, go ahead.
At a recent event. What is the value?
Which event are we talking about?
Oh, see, by the way, I could be your hype man, and because it's almost like I knew
do a lot of events.
Now you sound real. Yeah, you sound. I think it was one in California.
Okay, my event. Was it my event, or was it the LA Tribune event, or was it Magnify Your Wealth?
That's it. That's
my event.
That's it. Yeah. So why is that valuable to people specifically, and then more generally? Right now, there is uncertainty. Someone thinking to this that's listening, oh, I can't go to an event. Like, why would I bother? Why should they? If they are unsure, or like it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's the value of meeting with people in a time like this?
So there's
two questions there. Yeah.
Based on your question, there's sort of three valuable things that happen at that event. Okay. One, this is for business owners and investors. So if you're a video gamer, this is probably not your event, right? But if you're an investor, or you're a business owner, or you even think you want to be a business owner and you want to avoid a lot of mistakes, but pretty much everybody that comes is successful enough that they can buy a ticket, travel to the event, stay in a hotel, take days off of work, and whatever. So there's three main things that happen at the event. The first one is the obvious one. There's great training from the stage. There's 3 days of asset protection, tax planning, investment, self-directed 401k and IRAs. There's a level of coaching and personal development, because business is, in a very real way, a mind game. And so we have our MC, who also speaks on the second day, who happens to be my wife, is a world-class executive coach, has very successful, a lot of famous people actually all over the world, makes a lot of money. And she talks about the science of your success, the thinking and the doing part of it. But anyway, so one is you're going to get great information from the stage. You're going to get a sort of a story arc of simple to complex structurally, like corporations and LLCs and corporate compliance and multiple entities and all that. And also the code, the tax code. And then it's like, okay, now you understand how to organize yourself. What do you do then? And so what do you invest in? How do you let somebody else invest your money, or do you manage your own money? How do you do research on stuff, and so on? So that all happens on the stage. That's at the stage. The next level is we are one of the only places that I know that allow not just allow, encourage and make it incumbent upon the presenters to do private meetings with the attendees. So we do about 400 private meetings in a side room. So in other words, Jay, you come, you hear something, you go out to the registration desk, say, I need to meet with so-and-so. They block a 30-minute meeting. And at that appointed time, you go and sit down with that lawyer, accountant, strategist, consultant, investor, and not get general information, get specific information for you, what applies to you in your situation. So that's great. The third thing that happens is there's a lot of networking. And so you're meeting other people who had similar inclinations to get their tail to San Diego, or the next one's going to be in Orlando, and to go and to leave the safety of your couch and your bed and your desk and your family and go to an event and mix it up with strangers and so on. You know what our biggest problem is at that event is there is a very good, I'm going to say it like this, there's a good spirit there. And we have a lot of returning people, probably 50% at least have been multiple times. Wow. And they just keep coming back, even though probably 2/3 of the content is the same every time. But they come because they learn new things, because they have friends there, because they'll end up having a board meeting with other people they've met and done deals with. It's really a cool thing that has been created, and it's the seminar, the Magnify Your Wealth event, is really an embodiment of my basic business principle, which is you've got to keep learning. You've got to get out and see the people. You've got to have new conversations with people you didn't already know. You need to get out of your comfort zone. I mean, the event does all of those things to people.
Can people still enroll for the Orlando one? And then when is that? Or you don't have a date yet?
The first weekend of November. I don't know the exact dates. For some reason, I have in my mind that it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Like there was something going on at the event, at the venue, that we couldn't get people in on Thursday nights to sleep. So I think it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. They can go to magnifyyourwealth.com and check out the website, magnifyyourwealth.com. There's videos, there's testimonials, there's early bird pricing depending on when somebody listens to this. So it's very inexpensive.
Why is getting together with people, getting out of one's comfort zone, putting someone, why is that valuable to someone in a time maybe where they're thinking it's not for them, for whatever that reason is? What do you like? What's your philosophy around? I have selfish reasons for asking this, and I'll elaborate on that after.
First of all, my experience is that the more inputs that you have to choose from, the more people you talk to, the more stories you hear, the more facts that you gather, the more opinions that you gather. Successful people that I've met gather lots of information and then sort of filter through it and hold on to the pieces that they can use and drop the rest. So if you don't get out and meet new people and have new conversations and sit in different rooms and learn new info, you're going to miss out. You're not going to have as many dots to connect, right? And so if you're in a time of insecurity, if you're in a time of going, oh my gosh, I think that the ways we've been doing things may not persist, then maybe it's time to get out and talk to a bunch of other people who are also trying to figure out their next right move. Which one of these paths, which fork should I take, right? And they're out trying to gather intel. And that's why I think it's important to go to events. I attend a lot of events because I speak at a lot of events, but I still hire mentors. I still pay for counsel. I still read books. I still listen to TED Talks and podcasts. I don't have a corner on anything. I'm constantly, I'm curious. I want to know what's going on. And even if I don't do that new business thing, or I don't take advantage of that, whatever the opportunity is in front of me, just listening to it, just seeing that somebody is working on it, just seeing the way that the crowd is responding to it will inform other things that I do.
This is amazing. Julie, if you're listening to this, I think the episode could be called "Which Fork Should I Take?" But it's up to you, frankly, because I trust your judgment. But like, wow, I just wrote a note of something you said. I want your feedback on this. Gather intel, successful people, basically, right? Gathering information, filtering through that, dropping a percentage of it, and using a percentage. I was thinking like a funnel kind of thing. And so going into this environment, like your event, for example, will help gather. If you're not gathering the information, whether on the stage or with people, then how do you filter? How do you drop? Just like as a final, place for us to, like, what do they call that? An open loop for next time or something?
Leave an open loop.
Yeah.
So what is your question?
What do you think of that? Am I understanding what you're saying essentially is the value of putting oneself in these environments? You got to gather the info, you got to filter it, you got to drop a percentage and use a percentage. Just curious what you think about that.
Okay, so my dad, who passed away in July of 2020, so almost 3 years ago, my dad was my total hero. He was not a financially successful guy, but he was successful in his career, but it was not a high-paying career. People loved him. He was smart, but what he was super curious. He had professionals and scientists and junk collectors, and everybody loved Dick Young. Everybody thought he was great. And as a kid, as his oldest kid, living in his house and with all of his antique collections and all the stuff that he'd just gathered over his whole life of being curious. If we were going to dress up for Halloween or do a school project or have to give a talk about a certain subject or whatever, and I'd go to my dad and say, "Dad, do you have a ... fill in the blanks? Do you have a silver tip cane? Do you have a pith helmet? Do you have a slug of tobacco? Do you have a serape? Do you have anything I could think of?"
Wow.
"Dad, do you have that?" He'd say, "Hold on, let me go look." And he'd come back with it. And it was like, I think back on the movie Mary Poppins and her carpet bag, and she's reaching into this bag and pulling a lamp and a plant and a giant mirror and everything out of this bag. Like, my dad had this magical ability to go into his stuff, grab what was needed, and deliver it.
Wow.
And that's what we're talking about here. People that get enough inputs, gather enough data, get enough relationships, know where something's going on, right? As certain circumstances bubble up and somebody says, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Or if I want to go do something myself and I go, if I was going to build this or create this or speak about this or sell this or whatever, how would I do it? And I can take all of those inputs, like, hold on, let me go look at my stuff. And I'm going to pull out the pieces that I need to do this thing. I don't need to carry all those things around with me forever, but I've got enough information. I've got enough social, relationships and social capital to get in the door or on the phone, right? So that I can accomplish what is in front of me right now. That's what I'm talking about. The most successful people that I've ever met are able to it's like Mission Impossible when they would lay out all the photos of the different potential team members and go, "We need this one and this one," and some episodes that person wasn't on. They didn't need them for this mission. You gather your team, you gather your resources, you gather your basket of curated, needful things, and you go do what you need to do. And then they all get put back away in the attic. And then the next time you need it, you go, I think I have something for this, and you go back and get it. And my whole career, 40 years now, has been gathering information, gathering relationships, gathering experiences, and then as needed, curating the right pieces together for the circumstance in front of me. It's a success formula, and it goes right back to same rules apply.